How safe is overnight RV parking? That's what we're going to be talking about today, giving you some tips and making sure your summer road trip is as smooth as possible, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me here today. And overnight RV parking is a huge topic among RVers, or really any road trippers in America, because it's one of the best ways to get some sleep and not have to pay any money for it. So what is overnight RV parking? Well, basically it's staying overnight on a piece of private land, sometimes public, obviously where it's always legal, and just catching about 6 to 8 hours of sleep and then going on your way the next day. Usually these stops are right off the interstate. Here are a few examples of where you can overnight RV park. The first one is a city street. Now, I wouldn't recommend this one because you have to be pretty discreet to park on a city street overnight in an RV, and in a lot of cities it's not even allowed. So you got to do a lot of research, you got to make sure you're parked in the right place, and then the safety of street parking is not always very clear. So it is an option, but I wouldn't count on it as the first choice. The next one is parking lots. Now, parking lots are actually a great option. So many parking lots in America allow overnight RV parking. It's true that many don't, but at Walmart's, Cracker Barrel, Home Depot, Cabela's, Bass Pro, a lot of these big box stores will allow you to park overnight in your RV. You got to make sure each specific location allows it, but it's a great option. Some city parks even allow overnight RV parking. Again, you got to look at the city ordinance and see if it's allowed, but a city park is one of the safest options and a great place that we often overnight RV park when we're making long travel days. And the last one is federal public lands. Now, overnight RV parking usually doesn't happen on federal public lands because that's where you're just going to end up camping, and they're usually far off the interstate. So it's not necessarily easy to overnight RV park on federal lands because they're not right on the path of an interstate. But sometimes it's an option. Now the big question is overnight RV parking safe? From our experience, yeah, it is safe. You obviously got to follow some basic safety practices, but if you do some research on the front end to see if A, it's allowed, and B, what other RVers have reported back, you can stay relatively safe at many overnight parking spots. My personal recommendation is Cracker Barrel, number one by far. It's absolute favorite. Walmart, close second. Going down the list of less appealing would be like truck stops, interstate rest stops, and then city streets, obviously. So that's kind of like how I would rank them, both for how much I enjoy those spots, but also how safe they are. Cracker Barrel, in my opinion, has been the safest. And you can do, if you're traveling with a dog, that can keep you feeling a little safer and let you know if anyone's coming around your RV, because the dog will start barking. Some people travel with firearms. The only issue with that is you have to know the state laws regarding the firearms. So it's not always the best option, but some people feel safe doing it that way. And then also just having connectivity in your cell phone and the ability to contact anyone in an emergency. Overall, from our experience, overnight RV parking is pretty safe. But let me give you these tips, because with these tips, you can really make sure that your safety is not a concern when you overnight RV park. Number one, I mentioned it already, but always read reviews. Reviews are the best piece of information you can get regarding your safety in a spot, and also just how much you're going to enjoy it. Reviewers don't hold anything back when it comes to reviewing an overnight parking spot, because really, what's at stake? Why would you lie about a review? So read reviews. They're usually quite colorful and informative. Park in a well-lit area. Now, it might not make a lot of sense if you want to get a good night's sleep, because the lights could keep you up if you're a light sleeper. But if lights make you feel more secure, especially if there are security cameras attached to those lights, that's a great sign that it's going to be more secure than a spot that has no cameras and is not well lit. And my favorite tip is just trust your gut. Always have a plan B. If you pull into an overnight parking spot and you just don't get the good vibes from it, don't feel like you have to camp there. Have a plan B and move on to the next spot. It's all part of the research. You set yourself up with plan A and plan B, maybe even plan C, and then you trust your gut, you trust your instinct to see which one you want to camp at. So overall, in our experience, 6 years of RVing, 5 of those being full-time RVing, we've stayed overnight at a lot of spots. We're still here to talk about it. We've never had a close encounter. We follow those tips, and basically we read reviews and do a little research to make sure it's legal. If you want to dive deeper, I'll link a blog article that talks about the legality of overnight RV parking, but otherwise, follow your gut, do the research, and give it a try if you're making long hours on an interstate this summer during a road trip. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.